Hello everybody, today's video is about 4 signs that your parent may be suffering from mental cognitive decline that could result in a diagnosis of dementia. So my name is Dawn Dickinson and this is my personal channel where I post videos on everything that I feel like that is not related to Arizona real estate. Now if you're interested in Arizona real estate, I would recommend you check out my other channel, Living in Northern Arizona, and I will have a link to that in the description below. But this video today is part of my Boomer Town Living Over 55 video series because this is something that I find enjoyable. I like doing research on this and I like doing videos on this, and hopefully some of these videos can help you out. So before I begin, I want to let you know I am not a doctor and I'm not a lawyer. I'm not here to give you medical advice or legal advice. What I am trying to do is give you anecdotal information that could help you and your family decide if some intervention needs to be done for your own aging parents, and what my family did just as examples and not as legal or medical advice, but just stuff that could help you by listening to my story. So I want to begin about my mother is 82 years old and she is diagnosed with both Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. Now, I believe she may have had the Alzheimer's for a while, but the vascular dementia is what has made her have the quickest and most severe mental decline. And about 2019 is when we discovered that these things were happening, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we went about figuring this out and what we did about it. Some of this might help your family, but probably just more informational than anything else. So I'm going to give you the 4 signs that we noticed something went wrong or was going wrong with my own mother. So to begin, I want to go back to 2019 and let you know that I, in 2019, decided to move to Sedona. And I had lived for many years, my whole life, very close to my mother. When I moved in 2019, I was actually less than a mile from my mother. I would see my mother all the time. We would talk on the phone every day. We would go out together probably at least 3 times a week, where we'd go shopping or we would go to lunch, or at least once a week she would come over and we would have family dinner like on Sunday night. So I was always talking to my mother, so I was able to detect when something went wrong. But in 2019, I moved to Sedona, and the first year I was there, I rented and kept my house in Phoenix, and so when I came back to Phoenix, I'd stay in my home. But at the end of 2019, I sold my Phoenix home, and then when I went to Phoenix, I would just stay with my mother for the weekend. So I would probably stay with her maybe 3 times a month at my mother's home while I was visiting my family in Phoenix. And that's where I got to notice things were going wrong because I was with my mother so often. So the first sign that something was going wrong was when my mother started getting lost going places. So she had her own car for years. We had actually gotten her a brand new car in 2019. And the first real indicator was in July of 2019. It was my mother's birthday. And every week, me and a group of friends from art club would get together at my friend Mary's house, and we would do art projects. And we'd start about 9 and we would work on our little projects, and then we would have lunch and snacks and talk. And it was always a fun time. And on this particular day, near my mother's birthday, my mother had a dentist appointment in the morning, and then about 10:30 she was going to be done and come to Mary's, and we had a party planned for her. We had a cake and snacks, and it was going to be fun. We were all anticipating it. So she had gone to the dentist, and then about 10 o'clock she called, "Oh, I'm headed on over." So we were waiting for her, and about 10:30 she calls again, and she's like, "I'm a little bit lost. I'm not sure where I'm at," which is like, that's kind of interesting. And I'm like, "Well, Mom, tell me, where are you?" And then I said, "Oh, okay, you need to go right on that instead of left to get to Mary." So, "Oh, okay," she hangs up, and another half hour later, same thing, she's lost. And then by the 3rd phone call, she's like, "I'm by the freeway. I'm just going to get on the freeway and I'm going to go home." So we were all disappointed because we had this fun thing planned for her. Plus, it was her. She gets to miss out on her own birthday party, but we're thinking, okay, maybe she's just having a bad day. So that was the first big thing that we had noticed. Of course, there were other little getting lost episodes also. Now, the second time she got really lost happened in November of 2019, where it was time to do the annual art club fundraiser, which we had been doing for years. It had actually been at the same hotel in Tempe for years, probably 10 years it had been in the same location, and we would go all the time. And in the past, my mother and I would drive together because of course we lived close. But this year I was living in Sedona, so it's like, okay, Mom, I'm driving early in the morning, I will meet you there. And my sister would meet us there too because it was a fun fundraiser party. So on the way, of course, I'm driving, Mom's calling me, I'm lost. And I'm like, well, I'm on the Interstate 17, call Gina. So she's on the phone with Gina. Gina's texting me, Mom's lost. She's trying to locate her. Mom is like way now far in North Phoenix. She's overshot the hotel, and it takes a long time for my sister to find her, track her down, and get her to the party. And then, okay, everything is cool when she's there, although we're all super shaken up. My sister found this phone app called LifeSeat 360, which we installed on the phone, so now we can track where our locations are in case this happens again. And although it was a scary experience, we made it through that day. But that was the second time that, like, wow, this is really something wrong, that my mother would get lost this badly twice for places that we have gone to many, many times before. Okay, now the second indication is suddenly my mother was not wanting to do things that she had been loved to do for many years. So the first thing I had noticed is, of course, I was now staying with her for a couple of days at a time, and my mother used to go to the YMCA, the Silver Sneakers program, where they had exercise class, and she would go every day. Now, it was very mild exercise, but the fact that these old people are out there moving is fabulous, and the fact that she made many friends doing this, and they would often have happy hours, and they would have lunch things, and I would be at my mom's, I don't feel like going to the Y today, and I'm like, okay, you know, once in a while I could see it. But now this started to become a pattern. Oh, they're having happy hour. I just don't feel like going today. And then another thing is my mother used to be an avid reader. From the time I was a very little girl, she always had a book in her hand. And people would give her books for her birthday and Christmas. I'm not really interested in reading this. And I would not see her reading anymore. And then the other thing is my mother's whole life revolved around art projects. You know, there was always an art project on her kitchen table that she was working on. Suddenly, she's not wanting to do art projects anymore. And she's not wanting to meet with the art group every week when we would do our fun, art fun session, So suddenly she's not wanting to do this. And this is actually the first thing that got me concerned, besides getting the lost, that she doesn't want to do anything. This made me think that my mother was depressed, because this is often a huge sign of depression. So I'm like, why is Mom depressed? What's going on? Nothing has changed. So that was number 2, that something could be wrong. Now, number 3 is the forgetfulness. Now, all of us get forgetful as we age. My mother was starting to get seriously forgetful. And one thing that comes to mind was that in 2020, my daughter graduated from high school in May. And this was the very worst time for the class of 2020. I feel so bad for it, because they are the only class that had no graduation ceremony. Graduation was canceled. But what they did do, their token, let's do something for class of 2020, is they had some program that was being broadcast on the television or YouTube or something, where Mount Point High School would read through the names, and they'd put up their senior portrait and say, so-and-so, graduated, yay, and move to the next picture. So because we were doing this, and because my mother had a gigantic house for one person, we decided we were going to do the graduation party for my daughter at my mother's house. Basically, we're just going to get her on the TV and watch, and her dad and myself got all the snacks, and everything was good. So about 6 o'clock that day, my daughter and her boyfriend goes to my mom's house first, and they ring the bell, and Mom's like, what do you want? I'm in bed. I'm like, 6 o'clock, you're in bed. And then she's like, Grandma, it's my graduation, we're having a party. No, we're not, and she's like, go away. So I'm like, well, that's weird. My daughter's calling me. What do we do? Grandma's telling me to go away, so I'm calling Mom, remember? We're having Laura's graduation party here. And then eventually Mom opens the door, we go in, and we have the party, and all is good. Although that's, again, super weird that you would forget something so significant. Your daughter's graduation, where we had this all worked out a few days in advance, and she actually wasn't supposed to do anything. We were doing it all. She just needed to, unlock the door and let us in. So the forgetting things, that's number 3. And then number 4 is that my mother was getting very defensive. So I remember, for example, one day she calls, every time she would lose something, it was my fault, I had borrowed it or something. So she calls, Dawn, I can't find my blue indigo paint. You must have borrowed it. And I'm like, no, Mom, I didn't borrow it. No, you must have it. Now she's all defensive. I didn't use it. And, you go over there and there it is, on the table behind something, But always everything that she couldn't find. And that was the other thing, losing stuff. But the defensive, she couldn't find it, so I must have taken it. This happened many, many times. And I just thought this was my mother getting old and obnoxious. But reality, I think this has had something to do with the mental decline because of the dementia. So those are the four main things that led me believe something was going wrong, and now it's time for a family intervention. All right, so next thing is what do you do when this is happening? And the first thing I did is I went to her pill bottle and I found her doctor, and I call her doctor and I'm like, look, something is wrong with my mother. Something is going wrong and I need you guys to check it out and see what needs to be done. And immediately they are defensive with me on the phone. Do you have power of attorney? Do you have medical power of attorney? And I'm like, no, because, nothing has been wrong with my mother. Well, we can't do anything for you. And I'm like, whoa, Nellie, just listen. I'm not asking you guys to tell me anything about my mom's medical records. I am wanting you to listen to me. Just take notes, listen to me, and do something. Call my mother in, schedule an appointment, because something is dreadfully wrong with my mother. And they're like, well, we can't do anything for you, but okay, I'll take notes. And so the nice nurse took notes when I told her something is wrong. My mother doesn't want to do anything. She's getting lost. She's forgetting things. Please check her out. I think she's depressed. But I don't know, you guys are the doctor. So this is where it started. And again, we're like, well, we can't do very much. And I think it's the end of the story. And I'm crying to all my friends and sisters, like, I don't know what we're going to do. But I thought nothing was going to happen, but apparently it did, because not long after that, my mother missed appointments. Like I'm telling you, she's forgetful, right? She forgets she has an appointment. And that's when the doctor started calling. They actually started with my sister. I think she was first in line because my sister's more knowledgeable medically than me. And then we got her to go into the doctor. And now this is when they started to do stuff about it. But now, I want you to know that it was a very long process, because you would call, oh, you'd make an appointment, it's a month, oh, you got to go get lab work, that's another week, oh, MRI, that's another 3 weeks, oh, now we got to read the MRI, oh, God forbid we do that right away, that's going to take 2 months, and then, oh, we need to bring her back. So now this is all going on between very early in the year, 2019, actually 2020, early around February, and doesn't resolve until late summer. And of course we know what's going on. It was the COVID time, everything is locked down, so that made an extra layer of difficulty. But all this again had started before the lockdowns, and it took this long until the end of the summer for them to resolve it. So the first thing that happens is in the spring, my mom gets an appointment and they're like, ooh, she cannot be driving, take that car away from her right now. So that's the first thing we do, we take the car away from her, which was pretty devastating, but at the same time, I think my mom had been afraid to drive, so she didn't take it as badly as I thought. Like when my grandmother had her car taken away, that was the end of the world. And then the other thing is like, ooh, she cannot live alone. And so at this point, Mom had already said she'd wanted to go into one of those really nice assisted living facilities. So we put her in a beautiful apartment, assisted living, where it had a great balcony, 1 bed, 1 beautiful kitchen, living room, all nicely done, granite canatites, beautiful cabinets, and it was a wonderful facility. They had a pool, they had activities, they had a cafeteria, they had art classes. It was going to be loads of fun for my mom, I thought. But she moves in, doesn't really want to do anything with anybody, doesn't want to leave the place, and again, now the doctors are looking at the MRI and they're like, woo, this is worse than we thought. Actually, assisted living is not good enough. You need to move her into memory care. But they weren't acting very quick because they're slow as molasses there. And this also had us a little bit annoyed. Now we're moving her twice. Thanks. If you'd have looked at that right away, we'd have just moved her once. So that being said, we had tried to get all the stuff in place to get her in memory care, but they really weren't moving very fast until my mother fell on the floor and was on the floor all night, unable to get up. And then the nurse that came in, because we had nurses checking on her every day, the nurse came in the morning and found her on the floor, and she had been on the floor all night. Now, the very sad part of this is my mother had one of those life alert buttons around her neck, but because her dementia was so bad, she did not know that if she just pushed the button, help would come and arrive, because she had no idea what the life alert was for. So now we move her into memory care, and And they have been very good at the memory care facility. They take care of her every need. If anything is wrong, they call. They will send her to the hospital if something is wrong. And as of today, my mother is designated a hospice patient, but she's in the memory care facility. Now, I want to just give you an idea how much this kind of stuff costs so that you can get an idea of what you might have to deal with if you get to this point. Now, you can move your parent into your home when the dementia is in the early stages, but I want you to know that at some point their care needs are going to be so intense that you probably won't be able to do it by yourself unless you're a trained nurse, because if you have a job, if you have a child, if you take a shower, your mother or father could wander off. And in Arizona, when it's 115 degrees in the summertime, it would not take long for them to get heat stroke and pass away. So before anybody gives a lecture on I wouldn't put my mother in one of those places, realize that the care will become so intense that even if you don't want to, you may have to. Now, when I want to talk about costs, when we initially moved her into the very nice assisted living place, it was $5,200 a month. And of course, that was only 6 months before we realized we had to move her into the memory care facility. We put her in a very nice memory care facility that initially cost about $5,500 a month, but now it's up to about $6,800 a month. But so I hope this information helps you out some. Remember again, I am not a healthcare provider. I am not a legal expert. If you can get your legal stuff in a row with your medical power of attorney, that would be great to do that first. But again, that's difficult when your parent doesn't realize there's an issue. Why should you get a power of attorney when I'm fine? That issue could come up. And then again, the doctor's not talking to you because they don't want to do their job. I shouldn't say that. And then second, they're just saying, you can't say anything. We don't have power of attorney. Those are probably the two big first obstacles you're going to come across. And then your third obstacle is financially devastating that this is. So I hope this helps. My name's Dawn Dickinson. This is my personal channel. If you enjoyed the content, please do me a favor and hit the thumbs up. This is a brand new channel. Not brand new. I'm just trying to launch this personal channel that is separate from my business channel. And if you enjoy the content, please subscribe because I hope to see you back here again sometime.